you for standing. Project 9, getting close. Persuade with power. Your objectives were to persuade your listeners to adopt your viewpoint and to use logic and emotion to support your position. I would like to share with you this morning the many strengths that I saw in your presentation, as well as offer you just a couple of suggestions to think about for the next time. The many strengths. First and foremost, the humor. You were extremely humorous. You just kept coming up with line after line after line. I think when you talked about Jim Crow versus Jack Daniels, everybody almost fell. So great humor in your presentation. Another strength, the gestures. You had lots of gestures. You talked about being caught flat-footed like a tennis player, and you gave us several other suggestions. Your research, because this was Persuade with Power. In order to persuade, you have to have some credibility. And in order to do that, you talked about Kennedy and Johnson and how they supported affirmative action. And you also talked about Wilkins and how he gave us some specific numbers about the number of years we were in slavery and discrimination. So all of that added credibility to your message. Another strength that I had, I thought the stories that you told us were absolutely wonderful. They helped kind of support your points when you were sharing your message with the student that you were talking to. You also looked like a professor. I also love the way you came out into the audience and talked specifically to the audience and called Alicia by name. One thing I'd like to caution you on when you do that is when you went back to the podium, you turned your back. Just kind of back up rather than turning your back on the audience. So lots of great things in your presentation. A couple of suggestions. Organization. While you told us stories, and I know you knew where you were going in your head, because this was a speech of persuasion, I would have liked to have known up front, very definitive. You said, I think it's a good thing. I would have liked if you had been more emphatic and listed your points one by one and then supported your points within those stories, since it was a speech of persuasion. And another opportunity was the closing, because if you had done those specific points, then you could have turned to the audience and said something like, now I ask you, because of point 1, point 2, point 3, don't you agree affirmative action is a good thing? But other than that, I think you did a fantastic job. I encourage you to continue to take affirmative steps, and your next speech will be action-oriented, and you will continue to wow your audience.